TPR. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the TPR pod. This is episode 152, and as you've seen in the episode description, we have the one, the only Hashim Ali on the show. Thank you once again, Hashim, for coming on the show. We have spoken about so many things during this episode, but Hashim is such a prolific person within the art design scene, pop culture scene in Pakistan that there's so much more that he does that we never got around to. What we did speak about was how he got into art, his early life, school, NCA, all that sort of stuff. There's a big discussion we have around art and culture and their perception in Pakistan, the struggles between culture, tradition, identity, those sort of things. We, of course, talk about Coke Studio. We talk about Pasoori. We talk about Mehram. The Mehram discussion is just amazing. And very importantly, something I want to specifically shout out in this intro, there is a section you'll see in the chapters where I ask Hashim about people he likes in the industry, and he has a list of shout outs that he gives. So do check that out. Really, really big of him to do this. Yeah, I mean, there's Jinn stories as well. Okay, that's it for this intro. Jump right into the episode. This is a great one. Thanks, Hashim Ali. Without further ado, pod number 152. How are you? You are, as far as I know, the busiest person in Pakistani design so far. You had a rehearsal of some sort?
I did. I'm actually part of a performance. So I also, from time to time, I perform on stage.
Right.
So there's this really small, well, not really small. I mean, it's a dance company,
Right.
and they're trying to do contemporary dance and tango and flamenco and different kind of dance forms in Pakistan. And it's the junior of mine from NCA Saad. So they run this place called the Colony. So wahan par he asked me if I could perform in one of the plays. So I'm doing like a small role in that.
Right.
So yeah, so I had those rehearsals. So main wahan se farigh ho ke aaya. So I had some work left. So maine wo karke, and then I was like, I should get back.
Okay, awesome. Yes, in my research, so talking to you, I'll be honest, I was a bit like unsure because I'm not super design versed.
Yeah.
So I reached out to people, some who you may know, some who know you. And I'm like, give me something to ask Hashim, something that I don't want to forget. And this did come up, okay, Hashim Ali has like this, well, not secret, but like not as mainstream background in dance and performance. Yeah, so definitely that will come up at some point. But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So yes, I do. I actually can't dance to save my life. I'll be very honest.
All good dancers say this.
No. I mean it. So I'm always at a shadi function. I remember growing up, आपकी जो पाकिस्तान में my dances होते हैं, सबने मिलके करना है, और वो मैं कभी मैं सबसे last pick होता था, मैं सबसे पीछे होता था. But I was always I've always performed on stage. I've loved performing. I've loved telling stories. So I used to act. I used to direct plays. I used to do puppet shows and God knows what. So usi ke through jo tha na, I started watching So You Think You Can Dance once I graduated. So मुझे बहुत fascinating लगता था कि वो किस तरह से करते हैं. Obviously, I am not a very flexible person. Let's be honest. So मुझे बहुत होता है मैंने करना है. So then when this junior of mine, he opened the Colony, I forced him. I'm like, मुझे कुछ सिखाओ. Like, I want to learn it. नहीं, मुझे ना किसी show में मुझे, because they also have classes. So I was like, I can't come to classes because my schedule is literally crazy. But you have to do this. Like, I'll come like on Sundays or at night. And he was really kind enough. So उसने बस एकदम से कहा कि let's so do you want to learn tango? I was like, okay. And he's like, let's try it out. So I was like, okay. And we did it. And tango, you don't really need like a really fluid body. It needs to be very stiff. So it kind of gave me the confidence. And so from that, I did like that. And then I did a contemporary dance. And then pata nahi kya karte karte. So there are very small bits that I do. And I'll be honest, but it's just amazing to work with people, and especially these kids. I'm amazed most of the time that, these kids who are making a place for this art form in Pakistan जहाँ पे हमें लगता है कुछ नहीं होता. You know, so वो जो उनकी जो energy है, उनकी जो एक force है, एक hope है, that's beautiful. Like I'm really tired most of the day. You know, I've crossed the 20s. So I'm in my early 30s. And, you know, there comes a point when they say as soon as you jump from your 20s to 30, you actually genuinely start getting tired and feeling tired. Overnight. So when I go there and I see this energy and this love, कि गर्मी है या सर्दी है, bijli hai, nahi hai, and they are at it, you know, and they're working for it, not because, you know, they're getting any monetary compensation out of it, but it's because they enjoy it and they love it. And wo paise agar mil rahe hain unko to ek aur achhi baat hai, but you know, it's the sheer love and the passion that kind of, and that's what's amazing. So it's not the fact that, you know, so wo karte I also enjoy it, also keeps me trying new things. So, you know, so I think that's what I did. But performing, yes, I've done a lot of theater growing up. I used to direct plays. I did like short films here and there. I have a small cameo in most of the work that I do. Right. So, you know, so it's like, but wo cameo aise koi button daba raha hai, koi haath hai kisi ka, you know, so like it's, right. But it's fun. It's because I think in the end it's teamwork. It's not really about anything.
But then that's a good point to start, I suppose, where you mentioned that you've always been into various forms of art.
Yeah.
How'd you become, this is a very basic question that you might have answered before, but how'd you become a designer? How'd you end up at NCA? What was that?
It's the story is both really dramatic and slightly unbelievable, but I growing up, I always liked, wo aapse bachpan mein puchte na, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I would always say I want to be a teacher and an artist. So okay. and luckily enough, I think I've done both.
Yeah.
But what happened was that I'm from a family where everybody's either a doctor or in the government. You know, art ka dur tak kuch nahi. My mother studied textile design, but she never really followed it. Although she has a PhD in it, but like she never really like went on to becoming like a designer. So she used to teach. Usko karte hue, so my dad was in the government and he was a diplomat and we shifted to Rome out of all the places in the world. And wahan par kya hua ki I used to hate going to school, I'll be honest. Like I used to hate it because, you know, yahan pe mujhe maar bhi pitti thi aur wo, matlab, you know, I was a good student, but then again, it was an all boys school. I hated my experience here. When I went there, suddenly I was like, why is education so easy? Like, why is nobody like running after me? Why is nobody like forcing me to do things? Why am I enjoying it all? And you know, मुझे chemistry में भी मजा आ रहा है, मुझे नहीं आता होता था. You know, मुझे हर चीज में आ रहा है. So वहाँ पर they basically, luckily enough, they made us try different things. Like आप जो मर्जी आप करना चाहते हैं ना आप करें. I remember there was an Australian kid in my class, and he wanted to be a carpenter. And उसके टीचर्स ने उसको कहीं नहीं बोला कि हाय कारपेंट्री क्या होती है, you know, like जिसमें पाकिस्तान को एक फोर्स करते हैं. They're like, you should try. There 10,000 schools you go to, and your O levels you should pick this, and your A levels you should pick that. I don't know what he's doing now. There was a student who wanted to be a astronaut, and you know now he's actually working for NASA. You know, so it was amazing. So वहाँ पर क्या हुआ? I had an amazing art teacher who would you know, help me with whatever I wanted to do, and then came the dreaded A levels, where you have to decide those 4 subjects that are gonna literally change your life. So I remember having this conversation with my parents, and they're like, "No, you have to go for sciences. You have to go for, you know, all of these things, because Pakistan ka tumhe nahi pata. You either do sciences or you can't do arts and this and that." And very forcefully, my teacher agreed. Piche unhone, I took like a 5th subject, which was art. And imagine like my teachers in like my physics class would be like, "You go do arts. मैं यहाँ पे तुम्हें कोई बात नहीं, मैं तुम्हें attendance present लगाता रहूँगा. You don't worry because you need to excel in that." So it was such a collaborative environment. So I think उसके बाद when I had to come back to Pakistan because the tenure ended, there was no other art college. I did want to go बाहर, but I'm so happy that I didn't go. मैंने सोचा masters पे जाऊँगा, but like I'm so happy because when I studied in Pakistan after studying बाहर in my formative years, it was a world apart. And you know, I think एक मैं जोश से वापस आया था कि because I learned this there, why can't we do this here? So I think वही एक जज्बा था जिसकी वजह से I went into art and design. There was a huge fight with my parents. वही पूरा drama, नहीं जाना, नहीं करना. My grandmother was upset with me for like years. But now it's so happy to see that they get so proud when, you know, they find out that, oh, I'm doing fine. Because in the end, honestly, the parents को ये नहीं होता है कि आप डॉक्टर ही बनो या आप इंजीनियर ही बनो. हमारा बच्चा सेटल्ड हो और हमारे बच्चे के पास पैसे आ रहे हो. वो उस टाइम पे हमें समझ नहीं आ रही होती. So now when they see कि अच्छा he's settled, he's doing his own thing, he's enjoying it, तो माँ बाप को और क्या चाहिए होता है. So I think it was just, I always say that, you know, I'm literally like मैं एक बस हिल से रोल करती बॉल हूँ जो बस जा रही है और वो जाती जा रही है जहाँ पे जाती है पहुँच जाती है. So I think that's the beauty of life as well, that you just go with the flow and you can be a performer one day, you can be an artist one day, you can be a designer one day, you can be anything. You don't need to like put yourself in a box, because the concept of जो उर्दू लफ्ज़ है ना तालिब इल्म जिसको हम बोलते हैं, it's very interesting. The meaning of तालिब इल्म, it's not student. It means जिसको इल्म की तलब हो. So the idea of liberal arts is actually a very rooted concept in the subcontinent, but we think it came from the West, but it's the other way around. Doing masters in one thing is actually a Western concept and not an Eastern concept. In the East, everybody learned everything. आपकी miniature painting होती थी तो वो एक बंदा नहीं बनाता. That's why it's not signed by one person. एक बंदे का काम होता है सिर्फ फूल बनाना, दूसरे का काम होता है शक्ल बनाना, तीसरे का काम होता है हाथ बनाना, चौथे. So it was a collaborative effort. So I feel कि वो था, तो I think that's why life is so short that one can literally do anything. So I think वही बात है कि मैंने कुछ सोचा नहीं कि मैंने इधर ही पहुंचना और यही करना है. I never have goals in life. I just literally go with the flow.
Right. Was it easy to adjust back to Pakistan? Did you have any adjustment period, or you just fit right in when you came?
I had a cultural shock for sure, because I left in early 2001. And that was, I think, just the start of Musharraf.
Yeah.
And I came back after privatization had happened. So I came back, I think, 2009 or 8.
Yeah.
It was like a good 7-8 years. And everything has changed, because मुझे तब भी याद है वहाँ से आते हुए I was like buying DVDs like crazy, because I was like पाकिस्तान में तो मिलती नहीं है, you know, we had the CD and वो भी कॉपी होती थी. तो I would be like ये तो मिलती नहीं है, and you know floppy disk होती थी, मुझे याद है उस पे मैं सेव करता था छोटे-छोटे images के. पता नहीं वहाँ जाके इंटरनेट का मुझे क्या कॉन्सेप्ट होगा, because वो dial up होता था. And when I came back, like everything was normal. Like I was like, you can go to the cinema, we have 3D movies, like what's happening? We have bookshops where you can buy books, because at that time I love reading. So books नहीं मिलती थी, and I remember pirated copies होती थी, और वो भी एक दो छोटी shops होती थी वहाँ से मिलती थी. And like all these big shops were really expensive. And when I came back, Readings, the shop in Lahore, it had started, which was giving out old books, but also new books, and there were new titles. So I was like, wow, like Pakistan's changed. So adjustment wise, I think, I don't know if I've always found it hard adjusting to a new place. So I think it was true for even moving to Italy and moving to Pakistan. But I think वो आते साथ ये था कि I came to Pakistan and straight away मेरा A-levels खत्म हो रहा था, आखिरी कुछ semester रह गया था I think. And उसके फौरन बाद I went to NCA. So there was never a period where I had to go back to a life that I already knew. So it was always something new.
Right.
So वो नहीं था. Culturally, I'd always been part of Pakistan very openly, even वहाँ पर भी. So वो मुझे कोई, but it was just a cultural shock कि अच्छा पाकिस्तान में ये भी हो रहा होता है. Like we have advanced that much, and that actually gave me the kind of the power and almost the hope कि हाँ हो सकता है. अगर यहाँ तक पहुँच के ना 4 साल 5 साल में, तो वहाँ पे भी पहुँच सकते हैं.
What'd you do at NCA? Like, how'd you feel interacting with? Were there like-minded people?
So NCA का ना, actually to be very honest, because मैं बाहर से आ रहा था, तो मुझे लगता था पाकिस्तान में ना वो like education point of view से, because बाहर एक बहुत ज़्यादा आपकी एक वो होती है, you know, like everybody's applying to universities, you need to have your portfolios ready. यहाँ पर भी सब कुछ है. NCA is a very rigorous process. They only take like 12 people in the department that I went to from all over Punjab. So, you know, it's like a really heavy dose, kind of a 3-4 day rigorous interview and tests and God knows what. But mujhe actually, I applied in 2 departments. So I applied in film and television, and I applied in communication design. And my mother, I still remember going into the communication design interview. My mother was like, "Dekho tum NCA ja rahe ho, but like film ki taraf na jana." And because there's this concept कि पता नहीं film industry क्या होती है, और उस time पे obviously it was starting off, and film department भी नया था बिल्कुल. So I went to my communication ka interview and it went horribly wrong. Like it went horribly bad. Like they asked me to act, I couldn't do it. Like it was just, मुझे लगा मेरी ragging हो रही है.
Right.
And but they'd already decided probably that they want to take me. मुझे नहीं पता, मुझे कुछ नहीं पता, but it was quite psychotic. And so I was really upset. So when I went to my film and television interview, the head of department said to me that, oh, we really like you and, you know, we like your work. And so if you had to choose between the two departments, which would you choose? And I said, I'll pick communication. And she's like, that's like the wrong answer. I was like, that's not the wrong answer. That's the honest answer. Yeah, that, you know, like I would. And she's like, why? Because I was like, because my mom said, don't be a kanjar. You know, like it was just like
that thing.
And
yeah.
she just looked at me like for 2 seconds, and she's like, "Gee," and I was like, "Yeah," because you know, like I found it very hard to even apply to NCA. So like, मैं आगे क्या मतलब मुझे लड़ना नहीं है और.
Yeah.
So, but luckily I did get into both departments and I did choose communication design. But 4 साल तक मुझे वो head of department मिलती थी, तो she would like, you know, you're that kid who said that. So come to film, and I think उन्हीं की मुझे दुआ लगी कि I'm now working for TV and motion pictures and films and, you know, like everything related to the camera rather than, you know, graphic design.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My first exposure now, the problem is I don't live in Pakistan, and my timing in Pakistan was like pretty much the opposite of yours. I grew up in Dubai and I moved to Pakistan like 2001 and then I left in 2010. So we're like mirroring those periods. And in 2010, there was this huge explosion, you know, the privatization thing of music and TV and drama and a lot of theater and stuff. I grew up in Karachi and, you know, I was in my own way involved in the music scene. So then you leave and I left and now I'm here. So my first exposure to the name Hashim Ali was, you know, I mean, when you're disconnected, you lose track of who's doing what. But last year, Natasha Noorani, who is a friend, we had her on the podcast, and she, after her single, you know, Choro came out in the video, and sab pagal ho gaye video dekh ke na, and she was talking about haan badi mushkilon se ye kiya wo kiya, and I just wanted to get Hashim Ali on, and you know, I'm so glad I got him. I'm like, so Hashim Ali is this name, and then I find Hashim Ali on Instagram. I'm like, oh shit, Hashim Ali is everywhere. Uske baad se, like, there was the work with Misha Shafi, there was the Coke Studio, and Coke Studio was like this insane explosion of talent and skill and execution that, you know, as you know, puri dunya is still recovering from this situation. So the music video stuff is my reference point. What the question that some people gave now, wo hote na purane music boys, they sort of get sort of jaded and they're like, ye sahi hai, wo sahi hai and stuff. And a few people who are into art, they're like, everyone is so dependent on nostalgia, and especially in Pakistan, where they're like, bas wo jo us zamane mein hua tha, that was good, and we grew up with that being good, so now that is the template for forever. And what everyone said to me about your videos, and I also agreed, was that it doesn't seem to be beholden to what has been done in the past, and there seems to be like, sure, there's reference points and there's inspiration and sab kuch theek hai, but there's also like the Natasha Noorani Choro video, that sort of dreamscape, 4 different sets. I haven't personally seen anything like that in Pakistan. I don't know if, you know, you're more connected to it, maybe there are other examples, but in your decision making, what's your job as an art director? Let's start there. Bilkul basic sawal.
So I think I work mainly as a production designer, but क्योंकि उसका concept इतना लोगों को clear नहीं है और art director का है, तो वो अगर if I look at it from like a bigger perspective, so it is a production design that I do rather than art direction. So दोनों में फर्क ये होता है, आर्ट डायरेक्टर प्रोडक्शन डिजाइनर के नीचे आता है, बट प्रोडक्शन डिजाइनर का काम क्या होता है, essentially they're a visual storyteller. So what they're doing is without, मैं ऐसे बताता होता हूँ कि प्रोडक्शन डिजाइनर वो करता है कि अगर आप म्यूट कर देना गाना, तो आपको फिर भी गाने की समझ आ रही हो, समझ नहीं तो कुछ फीलिंग आ रही हो आपको उससे, तो वो उसमें everything comes into that. कि you know like कलर पैलेटिंग क्या होगी, विजुअल क्या होगा, आपका राइट डाउन टू द फैक्ट कॉस्ट्यूम क्या पहना होगा, कॉस्ट्यूम की स्टाइलिंग कैसे होगी, स्पेसेस क्या होंगी, आई थिंक तो वो उसमें सब कुछ ही आ रहा होता है. So वो एक कोई I never define it as like one small thing, but it's just somebody who's designing the production, or who's like a director is directing actors and तो जो production designer होता है वो direct करता है overall visual को. So उसमें visual बहुत matter करता है, but that doesn't mean कि he's just working on himself और मैंने जो काम किया मैंने खुद ही सारा किया और मैं वाह 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 बहुत amazing हुआ, ऐसा नहीं है. It's always collaborative. You have to work with the cinematographer who you have to actually work very closely to them कि वो light कैसे करना चाह रहे हैं, and then you make sure कि आप उनको कोई ऐसी चीजें दे रहे हो कि वो कर रहे हो. But light design भी कई दफा production designer देख रहा होता है, you know, and then you have to work with a director, you have sometimes have to work with a client, you have to work with the singer. For example, Natasha Gul का जिस तरह आप कह रहे हैं, she's a very humble girl, but for her song, she knew exactly the kind of stuff that she wanted. And that's amazing to work with, because when you work with somebody who has a sense of what they want or the kind of visual sense that they want, it might be scattered. I love it because that means that somebody's put thought into it. And that's amazing for any creative, rather than koi aaye aur aapko कि आप कुछ भी कर दें आप creative हैं, ऐसे नहीं होता. And that's impossible. So I think wo hai. So it's a very big it's a very, very big JD, I guess.
But then when you come to such projects and you have this distinct vision, do people understand what you want them to do? Like, have you over your career faced, bro, ye kya matlab, pushback and that sort of stuff?
Of course. मुझे एक्चुअली बेचना बहुत अच्छा आता है एक्चुअली. मुझे समझाना बहुत अच्छा आता है, एंड दैट एक्चुअली कम्स फ्रॉम वर्किंग इन थिएटर. सो व्हेन यू आर एक्सप्लेनिंग टू समबडी कि ये चीज ऐसे करनी है, तो मेरा मूड बोर्ड जो होता है ना, इट्स फेमस कि उसकी कोई समझ नहीं आती किसी को. इट्स टू मच, इट्स लिटरली माय माइंड, एंड मूड बोर्ड इज सपोज्ड टू बी दैट. तो मेरा जो रेफरेंस पॉइंट्स होते हैं वो भी कई दफा समझ नहीं आ रही होती. बट होता ये कि शुरू में देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स लोगों को समझ नहीं आती थी आप क्या कर रहे हो, लोगों को पता नहीं होता था कि आप किस तरफ को लेके जाना चाह रहे हो चीजों को. आई पर्सनली ऑलवेज हैव क्लैशेस विद पीपल हु आल्सो आर वेरी क्रिएटिव. एंड इट्स नॉट कि वो बुरे होते हैं और मैं अच्छा होता हूँ, मेरे काम में घुस रहे होते, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. इट्स सिंपली आई पर्सनली फील दैट टू creative people can't really work together in the same field. Like if अगर मेरी फील्ड का बंदा मेरे साथ ही काम करोगे तो प्रॉब्लम होता है, because everybody thinks differently. So मुझे मसला ज्यादातर जब भी आया ना, वो इसी चीज में आया that you know I'm working with a director or somebody who knows who actually doesn't want you to do anything, rather than just pick up props and just do exactly what they want, then you work as a labor. तो वो मुझे उसमें प्रॉब्लम ज्यादा आती होती है. सोच पे तो है, सोच पे तो हमेशा होता है. To this day I feel sometimes that you know I'm explaining an idea and the other person just like ये बकवास कर रहा है, ये क्या सोच रहा है, ये ठीक नहीं लग रहा, ये होगा कि नहीं होगा. तो फिर क्या होता है कि I always agree with them, but in the end I somehow try to do what I also want, so I always meet them halfway. तो ये बहुत ज्यादा होता है, बहुत दफा होता है, बहुत ज्यादा प्रोजेक्ट्स पे होता है और अभी तक होता आ रहा है. एंड आई थिंक ये होता रहेगा because in Pakistan especially I feel there's a lack of art education, so लोगों को समझ नहीं आ रही होती where you're coming from and what does it mean. As far as कई दफा ये होता है लोग मुझे ये क्वेश्चन जरूर करते हैं, तो आपने इतना सोचा पीछे तो ऑडियंस को समझ आएगा. For that I really don't care, because I feel that if you are feeling something and you are putting your heart and soul into something and you have a certain knowledge that you're adding to that, if the other person's understanding 2% of it, that is more than enough, because you're translating feelings, you're not translating exactly आपने research कहाँ से की, आप किसी को jury नहीं दे रहे हैं, आप किसी को अपना thesis नहीं सुना रहे. So even if like one object has like 10 different layers at the back which you have created for yourself, that is your process. That is the process जिसको समझ आनी होगी, आएगी. When they listen to the BTS, they love it. But जिसको नहीं समझ आनी, कोई बात नहीं. I love it. I love the fact that everybody deciphers visuals differently and looks at things differently. So उसमें मुझे भी मजा आता है कि if I also learn new things, कि अच्छा मैं ये करना चाहता था, ये हुआ नहीं, इनको ये समझ आया. So okay, so this is what this means to the general public as well.
Yeah, the art education thing, that's also in Pakistan is also something that we've spoken about to other people who are working perhaps in like the web series, YouTube content creation kind of thing, where people do struggle with the idea, because many people who are doing well, unki inspirations might be drawing from, you know, the confidence of more mature markets, which is basically a word for the West or even India, where, you know, there's a lot, bahut sare genres hain, you can be fluid with your inspirations, executions, and the audience is open to it. But Pakistan mein I guess it's a, you know, that being beholden to nostalgia in a sense कि if you do something and उनको ये पसंद आ गया कि अच्छा जी, they put you in like a box almost, and then everybody from like the audience to the perhaps the financial backers, they just want to be within this box because they think that is safe. Is that something you feel in your field also?
I do, but I feel nobody has the power to put you in a box. You put
Right.
yourself in a box. So walls to log bana denge, but aap usme jana khud pas. Nobody forces you into anything, you know. So it is about comfort, like you said, कि वो comfortable spot बन जाता है. So ये बहुत ज़्यादा होता है that you do one thing और अब आपका वो comfortable spot बन गया. So then you automatically allow the world to create a box and then go inside it. You know, nobody has the power to force you. आप हैं, आपके अलावा कोई नहीं है इस दुनिया में. आप जो हैं आप ही हैं और आप से सोचते हैं वो आप ही सोचते हैं. Nobody can force you to do anything, you know.
Right.
And जहाँ तक बात रही nostalgia की, because you keep on using that word, and I love the fact that people are going to nostalgia. And the funny thing is why people go to nostalgia, because they're not happy with the current time. They're not happy with what's happening right now. So they feel they have to go to a time जो अच्छा था, which seems like nostalgia, and or you go to future, which seems like something that can happen, the possibilities. So you know, in a way, it also shows how people want to create new things, but they are finding solace in stuff that's already happened or simpler times. But जहाँ तक वो box वाली बात थी, वो वही है कि you know, you put yourself in there. होता है, obviously होता है कि लोग कहते हैं ये ऐसा ही है और ऐसा ही काम करेगा, but I personally, अल्लाह का शुक्र है that I try very hard that मैं अपनी चीजों को मिलने ना दूं एक दूसरे से, you know, कि वो एक चीज दूसरी चीज से ना मिले. So I have done things which are very simple. I've done things which are very overtly maximalist, minimalist की तरफ किया हुआ है, कलर भी किया हुआ है, डल भी किया हुआ है. You know, you go towards a really dark visual language, because and that comes, I feel, from studying production, communication design, which is graphic design की एक higher form. उसमें क्या हो रहा है that you're told to communicate a visual without words. So you know, communicate stories without words. So उसमें क्या होता है कि you know, so you know कि अच्छा आपको visual क्या देना है, आपको चीज को, story को बेचना कैसे, आपको उसको दिखाना कैसे और लोगों को translate कैसे करना है. So I think वो जो हम जब box में डलते हैं ना, वो इसलिए भी डलते हैं because we don't expand our knowledge. We don't know. बहुत सारे लोग काम कर रहे हैं जो it's about studying, right? Like I also feel कि अब एक point आता जा रहा है जहाँ पे आके शायद मेरी studying जो है वो खत्म होती जा रही है. So I need to get more knowledge, which doesn't mean that I'll go for a master's or something. It just means that I need to get more visual knowledge.
Right.
And another thing that you mentioned, that you know, most of the people working, they always look to the West or look to Bollywood or look to different other places which are much more advanced and mature. Obviously they do. Obviously people will. And I personally feel that there's no harm in that. उसकी सबसे बड़ा reason जो है वो ये है that there's a beautiful book that I read. It's called Hegarty on Creativity. Okay. And it was written by this guy who's a huge creative person, worked in agencies and everything. So उस book के अंदर ना, it's about rules on creativity. And uske andar sabse start mein there is this thing that what is the first rule of creativity? And the first rule of creativity is there is no rule. And then the second page ke upar uspe likha hota, it's a blank page, and uske upar likha hota that, you know, one thing that you need to realize is that nothing can come out of nothing. You need something for it to come out of something. So I feel that there is and by the way, this culture is only in Pakistan as well. कि हमारा, because of lack of education, because of lack of understanding, because of lack of the understanding of creativity, a lot of people think that creativity means original. क्या है? There is no such thing as originality. There is nothing in the world that is original. आपका पहिया बना था Stone Age में. आप आज तक पहिया यूज करते हैं. Are we copying the Stone Age people? Are we copying their designs? Like, are we doing that? Like, we can't say that, right? Because we're not doing that. Secondly, आपकी एक चीज, for example, आपका जो म्यूजिक भी आप सुनते हैं, तो जिस तरह की म्यूजिक आपका इंडिया में बज रहा है, उससे सिमिलर म्यूजिक अफ्रीका में भी बजता है, you know. और if you're looking at different forms of fabric, वो आपका यहाँ पे भी है तो दुनिया में कहीं और पे भी. Does that mean that they're copying each other? No, because cultures travel, people travel, we take our stories with us, we take ourselves with us. How can we not be inspired from the world around us? And I think it's great that we look at countries that are more mature than us, because that means that we want to achieve that status. So we're not looking at something जो हमारे से नीचे है, हम ऊपर देख रहे हैं, because अगर आप ऊपर देख के चलोगे तो आप ऊपर जाने की कोशिश करोगे.
Right.
Most of the time, yes, there's blatant copies happening. I obviously do not agree with that. Most of the times we try to do things which we cannot do, but just the simple fact that people are thinking that is amazing. There was a project that I worked with for Bayan, this band, and unki video mein the director wanted a revolving set. If I was in Europe or if I was in America, I would have said, oh, revolving set chahiye, koi baat nahi. I'm going to dial a number. I'm going to get a person who would have a revolving stage. He'll bring it on location and we'll shoot it. But we don't have that. So we had to create it from scratch. और वो last minute तक नहीं घूम रहा था because motor का मसला है जी, बिजली नहीं हमारी, पता नहीं कैसे होगा. And in the end, it did move. So imagine the kind of innovations that people are doing because you are in a state where you can't do much because you don't have the resources. So I feel that not having the resources actually makes you learn more. You know, वो जो कहते नहीं, जो इस्लाम में हम एक बात हमेशा निकालते हैं कि बेशक इल्म हासिल करने के लिए चीन ही जाना पड़े, उसका मतलब एक्चुअल चाइना नहीं होता था. उसका मतलब होता है even if you have to go very far, because China was very far from Saudi Arabia. So and it was just कि आपको मशक्कत करनी पड़ती है. So I think अगर तो लोग कर रहे हैं और वो देख रहे हैं and they want to strive for that visual and they want to try things जहाँ पे different चीजें try, then I think that's brilliant. Yes, visually I feel that we need to find our identity, and I think that's what hits people. You mentioned Misha Shafiq ka Gana, you mentioned a Coke Studio. So both of these things, if you look at them, they are creating an identity. So they are creating the identity which is our identity, which is the South Asian identity. Hot mango chutney sauce आप देखें तो उसके अंदर, you know, all the things were actually picked from ठेलास. Like उसकी जो jewelry हमने उठाई थी, मैंने जाकर देखी थी, वो ठेलों से उठाई थी मैंने, उसमें clips उठाए थे, चीजें which we see everywhere. But how do you use them? How do you use it as an identity? They're wearing things that we as Pakistanis wear. But जो हमारी age-old debate है on ट्रेडिशन एंड कल्चर, वो नहीं आ सकती. दैट यू नो, ये हमारा कल्चर नहीं है. भाई कल्चर तो आपका चेंज होता रहता है. कल्चर तो ये है कि मैंने टी शर्ट पहनी है, मैंने शॉर्ट्स पहनी, दैट इज माय कल्चर राइट नाउ, बिकॉज़ कल्चर इज राइट नाउ. ट्रेडिशन इज समथिंग व्हिच हैड हैपेंड बिफोर, सो दैट्स द पास्ट. So we don't know these words, so how can we like think of progressing? Because हम अपने में लड़ी जा रहे हैं, हम अपने के अंदर ही अपने आप को काटी जा रहे हैं, तो हम आगे कैसे बढ़ेंगे? प्रॉब्लम ये, हम अपने को काटते हैं, हम अपने को तनकीद करते हैं, हम अपने आप को कोई कुछ करने की कोशिश करता है, सबसे पहले हम उसको कहते हैं ये बुरा है, बिकॉज वो चीज हमारे चीजों के साथ जाती है. इट्स अनफेमिलियर. नताशा की वीडियो पे आई कैन टेल यू देयर विल बी सो मेनी पीपल वुड हैव सेड ये क्या है, मुझे कोई समझ नहीं आई, ये क्या करने की कोशिश की है, यू नो. बट द फैक्ट दैट शी ट्राइड is amazing. You know, the fact she did it is amazing, and the fact that people loved it is amazing. So I always say कि वो दो लोगों को सुनो जो अच्छा बोल रहे हैं, जो 100 लोग बुरा बोल रहे हैं, उनको just like throw them away.
What you are saying is correct, but it also requires a lot of self-belief and confidence in pushing, you know, believing in yourself.
Of course.
I'm assuming 10 plus years down in your career at least. Have you always been this self-assured? If you weren't, how'd you overcome it?
No, so I still am not self-assured. Right. I might sound like it, but I think I have a very, very strong belief in God. And मुझे basically ये होता है कि my belief, because I was bullied all my life.
Okay.
So I was bullied growing up. I was from an all-boys school. I was seen as the kid who wants to do art and read, and you know, like it was a public school. I was bullied there. I went to Italy. I was bullied for being brown. Sure. It was racism. I was bullied for talking a certain way. Then I came back to Pakistan, or jab aaya, then I was called an ABCD because I had a very strong accent which I picked up. And then I shaved it off. Then I went to NC. I thought it was an art college, you know, but then you have this toxic masculinity going on there. And then, you know, anybody who's there, the stereotypes the, even to this day, every day, like मैं कुछ भी कर लूँ तो उसके बाद 10 लोग नीचे चीजें लिखते हैं that, you know, why are you wearing this color? Why are you acting like this? Why are you doing that? But I think my always belief was that growing up, I always knew that I only have myself. I have my friends, I have my family, but in the end, I only have myself, and I have Allah Mia. He's going to take care of me. So uske upar ye hota hai ki, and I think it's just, I would never say that I'm so confident in what I do. I always question myself. I always re-question myself after a project. I never see, ओ ये मैंने बहुत अच्छा किया था happy. It's always चलो अच्छा हुआ but इसमें गलत क्या हुआ था. And I always feel every project that I do that's good, maybe this is my last good project because अगला वाला शायद खराब हो जाए. So you know at the back of the end ये चल रहा है सब कुछ. So maybe it's high functioning anxiety or high functioning I don't know paranoia, but उसके साथ साथ you know like but what it gives me is this thing that I have me, I can do it. I have done it before. If I've survived bullies, if I've survived college, if I've survived all of that, तो ये चीज क्या है इनको भी समझ लेंगे कर लेंगे. And I think just loving people, I feel I love people. I can't hate anyone. Like it's impossible for me to hate. Like I might not like people, but I just can't hate some. I think hate is too big of a word.
Yeah.
So I think वो इतना ज़्यादा जब आता है ना and उसके साथ I feel there's always a self journey that one needs to do. So I feel होता क्या है कि हम life में we keep on journeying towards certain goals and certain people, and the goal never includes us. It's always a monetary goal. It's always a मैं ये कर लूंगा तो मैं यहाँ पहुंच जाऊंगा. हम कहीं ट्रैवल कर रहे तो हम वही 16 साल के बच्चे होते हैं जो you know who's going through so many things. So वो इसी पीछे फेंकते रहते हैं. So I think that's very important to kind of know that. So I think that is one journey that I've done, which I'm very proud of, that, you know, I've done that journey. I'm still on that journey. I learn every day. I'm probably horrible to so many people, but you know, like, but मुझे पता है कि मैं एक तरह से जो जा रहा हूँ, किसी ना किसी तरह से growth है और किसी न किसी तरह पहुंच जाएंगे, because पहले संभाला है तो संभाल ही लेंगे.
Also, then there was the thing about the Pakistani identity, and I suppose how that translates into things like design and art and culture. Again, I'm going to fall back on nostalgia, but I remember it seems like in the decades past, there was, at least before the 2000s, and then after a while into the 2000s, that sort of came back and now is seen as more visible. But there seem to be in society common people भी ज़ाहिर है वही है who you know in your small circles of, you know, family or friends. There seemed to be a wider appreciation of Pakistani art, culture. Just people were more into cultural pursuits. I don't know if this is true. मैं तो पाकिस्तान में रहता भी नहीं था in the 90s, so maybe this is all like, you know, received learning. But then it seems like, I don't know, it's almost like we're in some sort of shell where we're like, I felt this way. This is all, I think I'm translating my own music journey issues through your conversation. But it was almost like people were resistant to new ideas, change. Even culture पे इतने सवाल थे कि ये तो हमारा तरीका ही नहीं है, ये तो तुमने, you know, ये तो Indian तौर तरीके हैं, ये वो. Is that something that still comes up in your work, which is like really, you know,
101%. I think the difference of this is Indian and this is Pakistani and this is Hindu and this is Muslim and सबसे ऊपर ये है तो हमारा होता ही नहीं है.
Yeah.
But I think that can only be shaved off if you read, if you understand, if you know culture. And I mean culture की मैं पहले बात अगर कर रहा हूँ कि if somebody says कि एक आदमी प्रिंट नहीं पहन सकता बिकॉज वो गलत है, वो हमारा कल्चर नहीं है. एक तो कल्चर नहीं, अगेन वो ट्रेडिशन नहीं है हम कहते हैं. सेकेंडली अगर किसी को पता हो कि अल्लाह भला करे, हमारे जो एक्चुअली कल्चर नहीं है वो ये था कि प्रिंट वाज आवर कल्चर. मेन एंड वुमेन वोर द सेम क्लोथ्स, देयर वाज नो डिफरेंस प्री ब्रिटिश पीरियड. शेरवानी आई ही ब्रिटिशर्स की वजह से है बिकॉज दे वांटेड टू टर्न इट इनटू अ कोट. सो दे यूज्ड टू वेयर दीस लॉन्ग कोट्स. और जो हमारा घघरा था जो आदमी पहनते, जो अंगरखा होता था, जो हमारे मुगल्स पहनते थे एंड सिख पहनते थे, उसी को उन्होंने शिफ्ट करके शेरवानी बना के मेल फीमेल अलग किया. हमारा शलवार कमीज तो हमारा है ही नहीं. आई थिंक सलवार इट कम्स फ्रॉम आई थिंक टर्की या ऊपर से आता है. I might be wrong, but it comes from the Central Asia. हमारी वो चीजें आती हैं. So ये तो भी हमारी नहीं है. तो हम कैसे कह सकते हैं ये चीज ही हमारी नहीं है, जबकि we're literally the crossroads of the world. हमारी जगहों से चीजें निकलती हैं, आर्ट निकलती हैं. हमें तालिब इल्म का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं पता. हम समझते हैं लिबरल जो है वो लिबरल आर्ट्स जो हैं वो एक बहुत वेस्टर्न कॉन्सेप्ट है. लाइक आई सेड बिफोर, इट्स नॉट. हमें जब नेपोलियन, पता है बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात है, नेपोलियन क्या करता था, जहां पहले जाता था सबसे पहले लाइब्रेरीज जलाता था. वो जब आप लाइब्रेरी जला देते हो ना तो आप एक्चुअली उन लोगों को उन्हीं की हिस्ट्री खुद से बताते हो, अपने तरीके से बताते हो. तो हमारे साथ यही हुआ है कि हमने हमेशा अपनी हिस्ट्री किसी और से सुनी है. पहले वो हमें जो हमारा ब्रिटिश राज था वो बता के जा रहा था. जब वो चले गए देन वी क्रिएटेड दिस कंट्री, सो इट ऑल बिकेम अबाउट द इस्लामिक thought, but it wasn't an Islamic thought because Islam is probably one of the most loving and most accepting religion.
Yeah.
Then our identity was being told by our elders. Then we are going to tell our identity to our, so it's generational trauma. That's what I call it. So उसमें क्या होता है, हम कल्चर को शान कर देते हैं. हमें जब पता ही नहीं है चीजें क्या होता है, क्या नहीं होता, क्या होता आ रहा था, हम कहाँ गलत हुए, कहाँ पे किया, तो वो चीज की बात वहां पर आ गई. सेकेंडली, जहां तक म्यूजिकली अगर हम देखें या इंडस्ट्री वाइज देखें कि देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ रेजिस्टेंट बिफोर कि ऐसा नहीं होता, ऐसा होता है, वो अभी भी होता है और वो होता रहेगा. बिकॉज आई थिंक उसकी, इट माइट साउंड रियली मीन एज वेल, बट उसकी एक बहुत अच्छा जो चीज है ना, जो आप सीख सकते हो थेरेपी पे जाने से. व्हेन यू गो टू थेरेपी, राइट, यू एक्चुअली रियलाइज समथिंग वेरी ब्यूटीफुल, एंड दैट इज बिकॉज कि अगर दूसरा आप पे चीख रहा है ना, तो वो आप पे इसलिए नहीं चीख रहा बिकॉज वो आप पे गुस्से है, वो इसलिए चीख रहा है बिकॉज बिकॉज वो अपने पे गुस्सा है, राइट. एंड देन सेकेंडली आप एक और चीज सीखते हैं थेरेपी पे, व्हिच आई फाउंड वेरी ब्यूटीफुल, वाज द फैक्ट दैट if I don't like something because I'm scared of doing it, if I see somebody else doing it, I will judge them. Because मेरा ज़मीर कहता है कि ये मेरे ज़मीर ने मुझे इतना मना किया था करने से कि मैं नहीं कर पाया, तो वो कैसे कर रहा है, तो पहले मैं उसको रोकूंगा और मैं उसको बुरा भला बोलूंगा और मैं उसका मजाक उड़ाऊंगा, फिर मैं उसके साथ ये करूंगा, और फिर इन दी एंड जब वो कर लेगा तो फिर मैं कहूंगा अच्छा उसने कर लिया तो मैं भी तो कर ही सकता हूँ. Because that's his self journey. So I think उसमें क्या होता है कि वो एक जंग चलती रहती है कि आपको कोई मना कर रहे हैं और आप मना हो रहे हैं, और वो मना कर रहे हैं और ये कर रहे हैं, तो हम रुक जाते हैं उसके अंदर. But without that saying, yes, there are these boundaries, they are never gonna go anywhere. But I think it's also worldwide ये boundaries होती हैं आपकी. Yes, because बाहर I feel कि because it's just the lack of education, I'll be very honest, lack of art education. When you know, you have more people who know, then you find those 4 people who understand you, then you make this little group that understands you, और वो group बड़ा होता जाता है. बाहर ये West में हम ये देखते हैं बहुत ज्यादा common होता है that I'll have my little friends who like the same music because they understand the same music or they like the same art. यहाँ पर क्या होता है, हम बंद करते हैं, हमारी art education ही नहीं है, we don't, बात घूम फिर के वहां पे आ जाती है दोबारा से. इंडस्ट्री में चेंज है बहुत ज्यादा चेंज मुझे नजर आ रहा है. एंड जो नॉस्टैल्जिया की जो हम बात करते हैं ना, इट्स रियली फनी, जो नॉस्टैल्जिया हमें नजर आ रहा है, दैट्स एक्चुअली आर एज ग्रुप, जिसको नॉस्टैल्जिया पसंद है, जो नॉस्टैल्जिया की तरफ चाहता है. जो यंगर जनरेशन है, दे डोंट रियली केयर बिकॉज उनको तो पता ही नहीं आइडेंटिटी क्या है. एंड देयर इज अ ब्यूटीफुल अपराइजिंग इन पाकिस्तान व्हिच आई एब्सोल्युटली लव. You look at brands like Rasta. I think what Rasta has done, I met Zain when he was starting off, he was selling hoodies. And I met him, I still remember, we met at Mocha, and he was this starry-eyed kid and he wanted to do things. And even then I saw this love, this respect for the culture. You know what he did? He went looking for his identity. He did a car ride from Lahore to Sindh and then all the way north, so that he can learn the different embroideries that happen, the different prints that happen. And उसने क्या किया? He's like, मैं हुडी पहनता हूँ, मैं बड़ी ओवरसाइज शर्ट पहनता हूँ, सो क्यों ना मैं उसको अपने साथ मिक्स करूं, बिकॉज दैट इज माई कल्चर नाउ, बिकॉज दैट इज मी राइट नाउ. सो वो हम जो यंगर क्राउड है ना, उसमें आप दिस अपराइजिंग देख रहे हैं व्हिच हैज नथिंग टू डू विद नॉस्टैल्जिया. इट इज अ beautiful amalgamation of culture with what is happening right now in the world. And you like I can't even, like, because we live in our little bubbles, right? So मैं जब नहीं जाता था कॉलोनी और मैं नहीं देख रहा था, तो मुझे नहीं नजर आ रहा था. But when I go there and I see these young kids, and from the way they dress, the way they talk, the way that they think, the way that they're accepting, the way that they create music, the way that they're loving. But yes, there are small segments, they need to be bigger, पर वो होते जाएंगे. But nostalgia, because हम लोग उस एज पे पहुंच चुके हैं जहाँ पे वो नहीं होता कि आप जब कॉलेज से निकलते हो तो आप कहते हो हमारे जमाने में कॉलेज बहुत अच्छा होता था, कॉलेज खराब. अब कॉलेज का वो नहीं रहा जैसे पहले होता था. बट लाइक ऐसे नहीं होता, वो तब भी अच्छा था, वो उनके लिए अच्छा था, फिर हमारे लिए अच्छा हो गया. हम कहते हैं आप नोटिस कीजिएगा हर कॉलेज बस बुरा हो रहा है, बस हर कॉलेज जो है ना वो टाइम के साथ बुरा होता जा रहा है. और हर बंदा ये कहता है मेरे टाइम पे ज्यादा अच्छा था, पर अभी भी जो बंदा जा रहा है उसके लिए भी तो अच्छा ही है. बट इट्स जस्ट बिकॉज वी ग्रो आउट ऑफ इट एंड इट्स सम टाइम, सम पार्ट दैट वी लव्ड एंड एंजॉयड.
I feel like the things that you mentioned, like generational trauma wali baat, and there's this, perhaps ये हमारी generation ही है ना, 80s 90s and 2010s वाली, that Pakistan एक तो वैसे ही we had our colonial hangovers वगैरह that nobody really acknowledges fully in their daily lives, and then that was like a really turbulent period for Pakistan, politically, security, maybe even financially, whatever. तो I feel like ये जो millennials जो हम हैं, that's where these resentments come from also, where we're like अच्छा हमारे अम्मा अब्बा ने बताया था कि ये उनके ज़माने में था and ये अच्छा था और वो खुश थे. हमारे ज़माने में there was all this madness.
But you know, I'll tell you what, there's one thing where we don't give ourselves the credit, right? The biggest thing that we have done is open doors to the younger kids to actually do what they're doing right now. And I'm not gonna say कि हमने कोई बहुत amazing, like, yeah, but we were at the forefront who fought. Some of us left Pakistan, some of us fought from there. Right now, you have a Pakistani female director who has won 2 Oscars back to back. You have, and she was nominated twice. She has won an Emmy. You have Arooj Aftab, who worked for so long and she won an Emmy. You have Ataul Rahman's, I think, daughter, Ataul, who's doing
with Marvel,
वो Marvel का कर रही है. You have Shazil Malik, who's a designer who did the poster for Marvel, but apart from that has done countless book covers. You have people like Ismail Kiani, who's a very small scale person. I met him today and he told me that he worked in Hollywood for a CGI for a movie for Mila Kunis. You know, like they're doing things like we don't, everybody's doing everything, right? And you have people who are, because of probably the chaparian that we got and we went through and we opened those doors, and maybe we are tired now and we are, but I think instead of, like, I feel that instead of us thinking like कि हमारे time पे ऐसा होता था तो मतलब बुरा, I feel that we need to be like really happy that we have opened doors for somebody else, that they are able to do that. Like, honestly speaking, I am so excited for the Pakistani youth right now. I feel that the art and design, they can go places. You know, when I started art direction, there was no, I started with fashion and लोग मुझे fashion पे बोलते थे art director क्या होता है, उसकी ज़रूरत ही नहीं होती. And to this day, it was very overwhelming for me that, you know, big stars were in fashion shoots और उनकी dates change होती थी मेरी वजह से कि हाशिम available नहीं है. You know, it was a very humbling and very scary space for me that at one point I used to say art director की ज़रूरत नहीं है, उसको पैसे क्यों देने हैं, you know, ज़रूरत क्या है, you do free projects and God knows what. But to this day, I get people who are like, we want to be art directors, and my goal was just get respect to इस field को. खा लेंगे मार, कर लेंगे, कोई बात नहीं, you know, bankrupt हो जाएंगे, कोई बात. But at least जब मर जाएंगे, you'll have, लोग ऐसे ही create होते हैं, you know, you need to push through, you need to make space for other people. किसी को तो लड़ना है तो कर लें, क्या जाता है हमारा, क्या ही हो जाएगा.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think because of my choti si involvement in Karachi ka music scene in the early 2000s, there was like this, and then I left because Naukri and all that stuff. So there was this interest, and then in Pakistani art and music, which I think is why I'm doing this podcast, and I speak to like musicians, and that translates into YouTube creators, because YouTube बहुत देख रहा था मैं 2010 से like 16, 17 तक ना, there seemed to be like this desert, because I think Pakistan में जंग हो रही थी. But now it really feels like पिछले 3-4 साल से, COVID notwithstanding, there's been an explosion in art, design, music with these kids.
You know, there's a very beautiful thing why that has happened actually, because what happened was, and because COVID hit, and I think COVID has been almost, I don't wanna like, I know so many people died and it's horrible, but
it's been a catalyst.
Design, it is, but it also, you know what it did? It closed borders, which what happened with that was that, imagine आप खुद से सोचें, मैं A-level खत्म करूं और मैं कहता हूं कि मैंने पाकिस्तान से बाहर जाना है आर्ट पढ़ने या डिजाइन पढ़ने या म्यूजिक पढ़ने या फिल्म पढ़ने. You couldn't go.
Right.
You were forced to stay back. And because you were forced to stay back, you had the energy and the time to try things. Obviously, it's upsetting, but those people stayed back. Pakistan saw a boom on Instagram, especially of artists and designers who opened their brands, who were young kids, who were trying new things. You found people who were doing street dance. You found people who were hijabi, who was doing rap.
That did not exist before.
Found so many things. Where were these people? They existed, but simply because they were forced to stay back, you actually saw the real Pakistan. You saw what Pakistani people are. हम सारे वही हैं और बस पूरी दुनिया में फैले हुए कहीं और कुछ और कर रहे हैं. एक जगह imagine करें, just 2 years we were forced to stay back. Forcefully, the younger generation stayed back, that they contributed to the art scene. उसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि मुश्किल नहीं है. We had people who were very intolerant, people जिन्होंने बहुत ज्यादा लोगों के साथ भी बुरा किया, बहुत गालियां भी सुनी, बहुत सुनने को भी आई. वो होता रहेगा, वो एक जंग है जो चलती रहेगी, बिकॉज अनफॉर्चुनेटली वी हैव दैट मेंटेलिटी, और वो कभी खत्म नहीं हो सकती. बट उसके साथ साथ आई थिंक द बूम दैट वी सॉ, and especially if you ever get a chance to talk to Zulfi with Coke Studio, that man has worked hard all his life, and his one goal is to put Pakistan on the map, and there is no other goal. It is to create music that can put the world on the map. You know, with Natasha, honestly, what she did, like it's so overwhelming to see that she, by being a female singer who's doing this genre that she did, it opened doors to so many young musicians who said, we want to do this. You know, yeah, we want to be Natasha Noorani's, and we want to do that. I personally know so many girls that Natasha probably doesn't even know about who look up to her. So many boys who look up to her, that if a girl can do this in Pakistan, why can't we? You know, usne LLM, whatever. I can't.
Lahore Music Meet.
Lahore Music जिसने करवाया. Yeah. You know, like it's because she worked for it. She worked hard for it. She forced, and वो करती, and then, you know, you see this boom of people happening. I think, but what the beauty that I saw is this boom in music videos जो खत्म हो चुका हुआ था.
Yes.
I just hope कि खत्म ना हो जाए एकदम से दोबारा से सब कुछ, because problem ये है कि we don't have copyrights. We do not have a long-term plan for music industries, for film industries, for anything other than drama industry. और तो उसमें हम लोग क्या करते हैं कि हम लोग realize नहीं करते हैं कि जो लोग अभी काम कर रहे हैं उनकी energy कभी खत्म होगी. They cannot keep on plugging their money into projects, right? तो जो younger musician है ना, उसको कल को पैसा कमाना है, वो तब आएगा if you hire them in projects and you pay them. Yeah. You do not tell them that we're gonna give you credit and that's it. Exposure. Pay them, pay your artists, pay your designers, give them the respect. कुछ दे दें, 1000 रुपया दे दें, कुछ तो दें, दूसरे को कदर फील होती है. हम लोग क्या करते हैं, हम आपको क्रेडिट देंगे जी, हमारे बड़ा स्टार है, आप आ जाएं, आपका नाम आ जाएगा. आगे वो नाम भी उनका पुश नहीं होता, आपकी भी वीडियो बन जाती है. It's selfish. You know, so we need to be less selfish there, I feel. But I really hope, like, you know, इतने young बच्चा कर रहा है काम, इतना हमारी age के लोग काम कर रहे हैं who had stopped working simply because they're seeing that gap in the industry. You know, so I'm really excited, but also really scared for that.
How was you brought it up, and that's like an ideal segue. How did you get to working with Zulfi for Coke Studio? How'd that come about?
It was very random. It was, and I think I wasn't, it's really funny. I don't want to sound ungrateful. I was actually at a point in my life when I didn't want to work. I was overworked. I was like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. Coke Studio came. It was literally just another project for me. I never thought it was too big. And I think that was the amazing part, because I didn't think it was too big. So it didn't really like scare me that much. It was very random. I think I had done Bayan ki music video. And then uske through, somebody mentioned that they wanted to work with me. And then the team called me. The first song that I listened to was Momina Mustassim song. And I listened to it. And I still remember we were sitting in the same room. And I said, and Mujhe Vajia, who was the creative lead on this, she said, what do you think of the song? And I said, Mujhe lagta hai ye outdoor hona chahiye. And she just smiled, and I was like, "Why are you smiling?" She's like, "नहीं, पहले आप explain कर दो." I explained कि मुझे लगता है पानी हो, उसके बीच में कुछ हो, but outdoor और हवा और ये कुछ मैं explain करता. And she kept on smiling. She's like, because the funny thing is, when Zulfi wrote the song, he said, "I wish this was outdoors." And she's like, when I listened to it for the first time, I wish it was outdoors. Then Zishan Pervez said, "I wish it was outdoors." So, you know, so it was. वो बहुत randomly हुआ था, but then I didn't do the song. मैं शुरू में नहीं कर रहा था. Then Kamal called me, and that was the Pasoori was the only song I was signed up for. And then once I did that, फिर Tanna Yaari आ गया कहीं से. So I think the thing was that, so I think a lot of directors were looking at what I was doing, right. But उनको सिर्फ खौफ ये था कि मैं बहुत महंगा हूँगा, तो मेरे साथ काम नहीं कर सकते. So Coke Studio gave them the chance कि अच्छा, they can spend on art, because it's very shameful, and I find it also very offensive that even with film or any other project, आपका जब बजट बनता है ना, आपको चाहिए संजय लीला बंसाली होता है, और आपका बजट होता है, you know, like क्या मैं कहूँ, like तिब्बत स्नो के ऐड का, you know, like मैं like वो बजट ही नहीं होता. और उसके अंदर मुझे बहुत तब चढ़ती है इस बात पे कि आप you can pay your star, you can pay billions to your star, you can pay billions to your director, but you will not pay to your cinematographers, you will not pay to your choreographers, you will not pay to your composers, you will not pay to your art directors. Why? It's not that you don't have the money, you have the money, but you're spending it on the wrong people. You're not spending it on your marketing. Poster sabse end mein afterthought hota hai.
Yeah.
You know, like kyun? They did it because Zulfi knows the qadr of an artist. And मुझे यही होता था कि I came, अल्लाह का शुक्र है जो आप confidence की बात है, confidence से ज़्यादा self worth जब आना शुरू हुई थी ना, उसके बाद से I actually just started doing projects जिसमें मुझे self worth feel होती थी. मुझे होता था कि इसमें मेरी worth है. So you know, like even if the project is not paying me, मैं actually मैं अपने जेब से पैसे लगा रहा हूँ, but अगर respect मिल रही है ना, that is what my goal is, to give respect to this field के लोगों को पता चले इसमें जाता है. So Coke Studio is very random. Kamal called me for Pasoori. That was the only song. I made a board. It went horribly wrong. People didn't like it, but it's the same board that we shot in the end, by the way. But उनको समझ नहीं आ रही थी क्या होगा, कैसे होगा, जो restrictions की हम बात करें. But Kamal fought for it. Zulfi fought for it. Ali Sethi fought for it. And then in the end, we created what we created.
So who are the people, to interrupt, who are the people, like if Kamal is on board, Zulfi is on board, Ali Sethi, who is the other? I mean, if you don't.
Obviously, you have the entire marketing behind Coke. You have an entire आपके पीछे पूरी agencies involved होती हैं. Like वो बहुत बड़ा उसके पीछे, और because Coke Studio is on a global platform, so people like आपके उसके अंदर, you know, Pakistani Coke Studio is being seen globally. So उसमें क्या होता है कि आपकी meetings में भी you have people who are not just Pakistani. So आपके दूसरे heads भी होते हैं, उनको भी समझने, like वो मुश्किल सा music video ना लगे, ये ना लगे, वो ना लगे. So बहुत ज़्यादा questions थे. But anyways, तो उसके ऊपर जो पूरी जो हमारी चलती थी, तो उसके बाद फिर कन्ना यारी was the other song that I was signed up with. जमाल ने मुझे कहा, because Jamal always wanted to work with me, and he said like उसकी team ने मुझे actually जो producers थी Samya, she was like, I really have this project, you have to do this with us, because you know we have the budget that we can maybe do it just मजे से कर सकते हैं. And you know the best thing was, honestly, the directors spent on the art. They said, let's go there. So उनका आर्ट का बजट बड़ा होता था, वो लगाते थे, वो विजुअल पे पैसा खर्चते थे, डीओपी को देते थे, डीओपी अच्छा उठाते थे, you know, so that's where you love and respect comes from. So I think it was such a random process, and working with Zulfi was just, I think, pure joy. And I think one of the things that I'm really thankful for in my life is not the project, but just meeting Zulfi. And that person with that heart that wants to create art for art's sake. And I saw it for the first time with my eyes, that, you know, a person who wants to do it simply because it matters and it can matter. And then meeting like Kamal Khan, who's another brilliant, like Pasoori had the most female assistant directors and females on the crew than I've ever seen. And you know, the fact that he's so humble, and you forget that he created Lal Kabutar. He did that movie that was actually a movie. You know, like the most humble person, and the person who, and Zishan Pervez, who is honestly, like, I met the most amazing. He is that person who is, जो आपको पता है spot boy तक को बोला तो तुम भी अच्छा काम कर रहे हो. And you know, imagine how much love that the person would feel, that I'm seen by the director, that I might be on the chain, I might be on the lowest thing, but you know, my director loves me and my director sees me, you know. So you saw these amazing people, and Jamal and some, you know, the people were amazing, you know. So project to jo ho gaya, acha bhi hota hai, bura bhi hota hai, projects aate jate rehte hain, but the people that you meet and who kind of made you learn so much, you know, that's the beauty of the entire project for me as well. Like मैं कब जिंदगी भर नहीं भूल सकता.
I spoke to Zishan Pervez like a while ago on the podcast, and हमारे लिए तो he was the Zishan Pervez, Sajid and Zishan and all that stuff, because you know early 2000 में हम बच्चे थे, उनके गाने देख रहे थे, वीडियोस वो देख रहे थे, and he was just like, time de diya, he's just talking about stuff, and all I could remember was then like, this is capital letters Zishan Pervez, but he's talking to me like he's, you know, just open to the conversation. And that, I really understand where you're coming from.
Because आपको पता है वो यही होता है, कई दफा वही जो बॉक्स की हम बात कर रहे थे ना, वो फियर हमने खुद बनाया होता है फॉर पर्सन, जो बंदा पता नहीं बहुत बड़ा है तो कैसा होगा, you know.
कुछ होते भी हैं वैसे, you know.
कुछ होते भी नहीं, कुछ होते हैं, but वो जो होते हैं वो आपको पता भी चल जाता है, वो आपको पता भी चलता है. But you know, like, I think the beauty of this Coke Studio, honestly, now more than that, it was, the real magic was actually the relationships that were created. And And honestly, what you see, if you see that ounce of love on screen or behind the screen, and the projects that were created simply because everybody was a yes man, everybody helped each other. I don't think there was any set that at least I was a part of जहां पर खींचातानी हो रही थी, unpleasantness थी, कुछ भी नहीं था.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, the kind of people that worked on it. From the lowest person to the highest person, everyone.
Yeah, BTS, when you could see that everyone was really
and it's
happy
all
to be there.
real. And I think there was so many other moments that you don't get captured on that. But like that was the beauty of it. Honestly,
You mentioned with the Momina song that when you heard it, immediately you were thinking of like an outdoor setting. How did you come up with like Pasoori? How did this mood board translate from the song to the set? What was that? I'm going to take you through all your songs, by the way, if you have time.
So जो Pasoori था ना, Pasoori में ये था कि Kamal actually had a so जब Pasoori का शुरू में मैं गाना मिला था ना, there was just the beat.
Right.
कुछ भी नहीं था, lyrics नहीं थे उसके ऊपर. I think Ali Sethi was just गुनगुना रहा था उसके ऊपर. And इस सिर्फ ये पता था उसका नाम Pasoori है और ये एक line का पता था हमें, which Ali saw on the back of a truck.
Yeah.
And Kamal said to me, Hashim, ये मुझे बहुत cool करना है, ये मुझे fashion करना है, and I want to make it, something which is ours.
Yeah.
इसकी meaning ये होना चाहिए कि हमारा होना चाहिए. And उसने कुछ references देखे हुए थे in terms of visual references. I'm talking fashion wise, जो इंडिया में काम होता है and the kind of stuff जो पाकिस्तान में होता है. तो उसने कहा कि मुझे ना मतलब मजा आ रहा है इस तरह की चीजों को देखते हुए. And he was like, imagine it's like a communal spaces where people are just jamming together. And that was, I think that was Zulfi's brief as well. And then from there, we just took it. And I don't know why I had these earthy visuals and these visuals of कि अगर कोई इंसान है तो उसने मतलब सारी वो चीजें जो हम अपने कल्चर में देखते हैं और जो हमारे इर्द गिर्द नजर आती हैं, which are very purely पाकिस्तानी, उसको एकदम से हम कैसे ऐसा कर दें कि अगर मैं पाकिस्तान वापस आया तो मुझे पाकिस्तान दोबारा देखने को मिल रहा है, तो कैसे हो सकता है? तो ये आर्टिस्ट हैं, तो आर्टिस्ट तो कभी भी लुंगी को लुंगी की तरह नहीं पहनेगा, वो तो उसको कुछ और बना लेगा, सो उसके अंदर जब छोटे छोटे लोग देखते हैं, द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ द परांदा, कि अगर परांदा है तो परांदा ऐसे भी तो होता है, तो ऐसे भी तो होता है, तो कोट भी तो पहनते हैं हम लोग, अगर कोट पहनते तो हमारा कलर क्या होगा उसके ऊपर. सो आई थिंक इट जस्ट वेंट फ्रॉम देयर. एंड देन वन थिंग दैट आई वाज रियली आई रियली वांटेड Pasoori to be was that was the only song जिसके ऊपर जो सेट टीम थी वो लाहौर से आई थी. Because I wanted to use this people who actually used to work in Lollywood. So actually the person who painted just a texture, जिसको हम कहते हैं, जो texture paint करते हैं, वजीर साहब उनका नाम है, is very old. He's the one who's actually worked on Lollywood in the 50s. And जो main carpenter था Teddy, उसको Teddy बोलते हैं. I don't know his real name. और मैं उसके साथ बहुत काम करता हूँ, but Teddy जो है, Teddy was somebody who was a kid of a very famous उस्ताद जो set बनाते थे. And उन्हीं के दरमियान में there was Bilal who used to paint signage for Coca-Cola and Shazan जो दीवारों पे बने होते थे, अगर आपको बचपन में याद हो. So the idea came from this nostalgia, but the nostalgia is not nostalgic because it's happening right now.
Right.
So it's almost like this world that you come to and it's a crossroad जहाँ पे वो मिल रहे हैं. And Shegil, I always wanted in the middle of this really like foresty thing, because she's that younger person who's giving life and breathing life into the space. And then you have Ali who's walking around, और वो different जगहों पे वो आप देखेंगे तो he's usually वो top shot is पे she's sitting on the carpets and he's away from the carpets. तो छोटे छोटे हमने Easter eggs फेंके हुए थे उसके अंदर. So the idea came from something which we can own, and that is so purely Pakistani. उसमें कुछ भी आप देखिए, so it has nothing जिसको हम बोलें कि ये पाकिस्तानी नहीं है, बिकॉज पाकिस्तान ग्रीन झंडा नहीं है. हम लोग बहुत पुराने हैं. पाकिस्तान में इंडस्ट्री है, पाकिस्तान में हमारी एक बहुत बड़ी हिंदू कम्युनिटी भी है. वी हैव अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग डांस कम्युनिटी, वी हैव अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग पारसी कम्युनिटी, वी हैव सो मेनी कम्युनिटीज. हम उनको शान नहीं कर सकते. सो इट वाज जस्ट एन अमेलगमेशन कि ये सब कुछ जो हो रहा है वो एक स्पेस में, और वो सब खुश हैं एक दूसरे से. कोई पसूड़ी नहीं पाई है, किसी ने कोई पसूड़ी नहीं डाली है. They're all happy. And उसमें जो एक सिमाप का शॉट है, was actually the assistant director. No, it's not the assistant director. She was the assistant. I think she was on the on the creative team. She's the one who's on print. On print ka ek shot aata hai that, there's a floral print and the girl is also wearing a floral. My idea for that was my childhood, that growing up when you are so shy that you actually want to become part of the background.
Right.
But you also want that even that person's looking out and peeking out. That, I'm here, like, look at me, like I exist. And, there's just a small smile that she does. So उसमें बहुत छोटी-छोटी चीजें जो मैंने अंदर डाली थी आगे. I think Kamal was just brilliant, and then the editing was just amazing. But the thought process behind each image and everything was extreme commercialism, because that's part of our culture. कि Coca-Cola है तो वो हर जगह डाला हुआ है, but done in a creative way. You have a Coca-Cola seed. इतना Coca-Cola कहीं नहीं डाला. I think किसी गाने में नहीं डाला, पर वो आपको नजर नहीं आता. It's not jarring because it's part of our culture. So I think it was a love letter to our culture. And by culture, I actually mean what has happened, because culture is what is right now. And this is what Pakistan is right now. These people exist. They are here. And Kamal's team was amazing, because I think his assistant director actually picked out real people from Instagram. So all the faces that you see are actually people who are like that. They're wearing very little makeup. तो वो उनकी स्किन है कि किस तरह पाकिस्तान में कहाँ का बंदा है. His team went through like a rigorous Instagram and YouTube search. They found dancers who were brought in from interior Sindh or from so many different parts of Pakistan. They were brought in just to do the song. So it became like a love letter to happiness, and koi ladai nahi hai, koi pasoori nahi hai. And a small thing which was just for me was the fact that jo Kanna Yari hai, it's actually the inside of the same space.
Oh, really?
So when I designed it in my head, Kanna Yari is a Balochi song, and we always put our Balochi community behind closed doors. They're the last people who are picked up in every single. आप सर्फ का ad देखें, आप आटे का ad देखें, और जब पूरा पाकिस्तान दिखाते हैं तो बलोची एक व्हाइट पगड़ी में एक डेजर्ट के ऊपर बैठा होगा और उसके साथ एक झुग्गी होगी पीछे. That's not Balochistan, right? So बलोच को हम हमेशा पीछे डालते हैं. So when Zulfi bhai was telling me about the song, in my head I planned it that Kanna Yari, because Kamal wanted it to be different spaces जो खुलती जाती हैं. So I said, what if that space was part of a space? So Punjab is something जिसको हम बहुत खुल के दिखाते हैं. So that's why Punjab is on the outside of this communal space, and inside you all have Kanna Yari happening. That was just my thought process, which I think only he knows about. But it has a lot of. If you put the two songs together, you see the color paletting has a similar touch here and there. You see the chint print जो हमारा बलूचिस्तान में भी चलता है, पंजाब में भी चलता है, वो cushions के ऊपर हुआ है, छोटे वो. That was just, now that is something for my understanding. Like I don't care किसी को समझ आए ना आए, director को भी नहीं पता होगा, but that's something that I was actually I was envisioning when I was designing these two songs, because they were really important songs for me.
And it's like, I'm sure people listening now will be, I'll put like a visual. I'll try and find those in the video, and I'll put those in the video so that people know. But going from these explosive color palette, lively, wily videos, my favorite video, being an emo boy from the early 2000s, was Mehram. And
it's my favorite.
Mehram mein, I was like that was the first video that I saw, because it was also one of the earlier songs. And again, I wasn't super familiar with your body of work and stuff, but I saw it and I'm like, bro, ye Hashim Ali hoga. And then you were in the BTS and I was like, bas ji maine keh diya. But how, that's a very sad song, sure. And you go about talking about, the two rooms and the parallels between the singers. But it's very dark and sad and melancholy. What was the idea behind? How was that easy for you to bring out?
Of course. One thing that very few people know about me, growing up, I used to love listening to Evanescence.
Right,
I was a huge Evanescence fan. Wow, I was a huge Nightwish fan. I was a huge Within Temptation fan. I wanted to be a vampire. This is before, by the way, before the Twilight era. So this is like Interview with the Vampire shit, So I wanted to be like Lestat, and I would not go out in the sun.
Right.
And I had this group of friends in Rome, and we would like wear black clothes, and so I was all there. So Mehram was like, it's me. It's like me. And I'm a very emotional human being as well. So I think when I listen to it, and Aruj Aftab's voice and Asfar's voice just does something to me. I've listened to both of them separately as well. And I worked quite a few times with Bayan as well, which Asfar leads. So it was, So I think उसमें कुछ भी नहीं. It was just कि मेरे साथ ये होता है when I get a project, I just don't instantly jump to what the end visual is going to be. I always say कि अच्छा ये है तो ये यहाँ से कहाँ जा सकता है. My way of thinking is that I go from यहाँ से वहां पहुंच जाऊं, वहां से यहाँ जाऊं. मुझे नहीं पता एंड कहाँ पे होगा. मुझे कई दफा बिल्कुल नहीं पता होता. सो महरम के साथ ये हुआ था. मुर्तजा जो उसके डायरेक्टर थे, he sent me the song and he said हाशिम ये एक गाना है, ये करना है. एंड आई वाज लाइक ओके. एंड इन्होंने कहा कि मैं चाहता हूँ कि 2 स्पेसेस हों और वो बस उसके बाद दूसरे बैक स्पेस पे चले जाएं. मैंने ये सोचा हुआ गाने को विजुअलाइज किया. आई वाज लाइक ओके. And I forgot about the song that it existed and it was there and I was supposed to work on it. And मैंने सुना भी नहीं. एंड उसके बाद उनका एक दफा आया कि हाशिम ब्रो लाइक मतलब 2 दिन गुजर गए, कुछ सोचा है. तो आई वाज ड्राइविंग समवेयर, रात का वक्त है, 9-10 बज रहे थे. आई वाज लाइक लेट मी जस्ट पुट इट ऑन. आई पुट इट ऑन इन माय कार. आई लिसन टू इट वंस, आई लिसन टू इट ट्वाइस, आई लिसन टू इट थ्राइस. एंड आई मैसेज मुर्तजा भाई एंड आई सेड I don't think I can give you anything right now. I think I'm just too lost in this song. I think I need to like cut this song multiple times to figure out कि क्या हुआ है मेरे साथ. And I think the music created the visual, to be honest. Like the music is so dark in the sense that you can understand that somebody has seen the edge of life and come back from it. And you can see that somebody is calling out to a mehram. And the beautiful thing about the word mehram was, it is not your lover, you know, it is not, वो जो रूमी के quotations नहीं हम देखते, इसमें मैं अक्सर पढ़ता हूँ उसके नीचे लिखा, he's not talking about your ex-boyfriend, he's talking about God, right? So mehram is anything that was close to you that doesn't exist for you anymore. And the beauty that I felt was that it could be your grandmother who's passed away. It could be your family member who went away and never came back. It could be somebody you lost. It could be your lover. It could be a child that somebody lost. It could be anybody who could have or was your mehram and is not there anymore. So the song just opened up so many doors for me. And there's I think one of my favorite lines in it is जो अरूज कहती है, which actually became the center point of all the visual language, was kitni karun iltija chand se saath ki. And I remembered this story that my visual art teacher actually told us when we were studying, I think Sindhi stories पढ़ रहे थे. तो she said there's a story of चकोर and चांद, कि हमारी एक लोकल स्टोरी है कि एक चकोर बर्ड होता है और वो चांद को देखता है, कहते हैं चांद के पास उड़ के जाना है, पर वो कभी जा नहीं पाता है. तो एक वो सैड एक स्टोरी है that distance that the bird feels. And usi se then I thought of the moon. And scientifically they say that the moon was a part of the earth, and then when the collision hit, the moon went away. And a friend of mine, he's a he's an amazing director and a storyteller, Daniel Hassan. He said to me once, I remember, that do you know the beauty of the moon and the waves? Because raat ko kehte hain waves unchi ho jati hain. And he said it's so beautiful that it almost feels like the waves are reaching out to the moon कि हमें वापस जाना है, वो मेरा हिस्सा बन जाए दोबारा से, but you can't reach that. So that's, you know, and then suddenly you feel that space between the two people. So I think वो वहां से start हुआ था. And then the color paletting, again वो visual communication की sense है, that you know you understand कि emotion ये, तो obviously it can't be like a bright and happy thing. And the song was just so beautifully laid out with the lyrics and the visual that it just, I think, was the easiest song to design for, to be honest. Maybe because of my Nightwish and Evanescence history, but I think it was so easy to design. And then the fact that it just, honestly, to this day, मुझे अभी मैं मिला था 2 दिन पहले जुल्फी भाई and Vijaya से, so I said to them that, you know, to this day, they're like, oh, Pasoori, this and that. I was like, yeah, Pasoori is amazing, but I still love Mehram. And they were like, still? I was like, I can never unlove that song. I think that song is my favorite. I can listen to it every day. I can cry to it every day because it just does something to you. It is so honest.
You said that when you got Pasoori, it was just the beat and you had to extrapolate from that perhaps. And because the lyrics to BDS mein pata chalta hai ki end waqt tak they're being finalized. Mehram, did you get it like fully fledged and then you were able to split?
So Mehram ka is tarah se tha because Aruj was obviously in America. So I think they worked from afar, but
Sure.
lyrics आ चुके से, so I had Asfar's lyrics, I had Arooj's lyrics. तो जिसका end part है ना, जहाँ वो दोनों इकट्ठे गा रहे थे, वो मैंने नहीं सुना, तो मैंने on the day सुना था actually, जिस दिन shoot था. तो वो जो था ना, वो मैंने नहीं सुना. तो अभी भी जब मैं गाना सुनता हूँ ना, बिकॉज मैंने ओरिजिनल तो मैं उसको नहीं बोलूंगा, डेमो बोलूंगा. डेमो मैंने इतनी दफा सुना हुआ है कि मुझे बड़ा अजीब सा लगता है एकदम से दोनों क्यों गा रहे हैं. बिकॉज मेरे माइंड में वो गाना चलता है, उसके बाद बस बीट कंटिन्यू होती रहती है, एंड यू नो इट एंड्स. सो उसमें लिरिक्स थे, बिकॉज लिरिक्स डिड, honestly speaking, that song was the one just the lyrics and the music became the basis of the visual for that song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's how you came to Asfar ka room, where he's trying to preserve everything, and
Arooj वो उसके अंदर बातों में वो जो बोल रहा है वो यही है. उसके लिरिक्स एक पहले मैंने अरूज का लिरिक जब मुझे चकोर का मिल गया था ना, so I was like, मुझे चकोर की बात समझ आ गई, इसका मतलब असफर भी कुछ बोल रहा है. फिर मैंने जाके असफर की बात सुनी, बिकॉज अरूज's voice honestly like does something to me. मैं उसके कब से गाने सुनता आ रहा हूँ, और उसके हर गाने इवन विद मोहब्बत, और वो जिस तरह से वो गाने के अंदर she's amazing. Like I don't know how else to put it, and it was such an honor to work with her. And uski jab meri lyrics pakad li na, then I went back and I listened to what Asfar was saying, and I was like, he's just talking about preserving memories. He's that person who's saying ke tum chale gaye ho, but you know, main kisi na tumhe bas rok lu, tumhe na jaane do. And then the fact that he's talking about कि मैंने कितनी मतलब मैं अकेला अपने साहिबान को ढूंढी जा रहा हूँ, एंड वो साहिबान को ढूंढने का कॉन्सेप्ट जो है वो यही है that you know बुलबुल जो होता है, बुलबुल पेड़ में होता है, bird. So I was like, if there's a bird, so he can be a bird. And you know, they're both songbirds, they're singing but in separate spaces and stuck. And you know, बुलबुल जो होता है, अगर उसको अपना पार्टनर ना मिले तो वो रोता है, वो खुश नहीं होता, वो रोता है, उसको ढूंढता है. तो हमेशा पेड़ में आपको बुलबुल नजर आता है. सो उसका यही था कि उस बुलबुल ने अगर अपना पेड़ भूल गया है तो किधर जाएगा, तो उसी की तलाश में, और उसने सब कुछ रोक के बैठा हुआ कि शायद कोई कभी वापस आ जाएगा. एंड अरूज की तरफ इफ यू लुक एट इट, तो उसके फ्लोर पे सारे भी ब्रिलियंट आर्ट डायरेक्टर उमर बट ऑन इट, एंड यू नो, एंड उसके नीचे पूरी आप देखेंगे कि ग्लास जार्स में कैंडल्स हैं, और उसका वो सिर्फ somebody would see it as ग्लास जार में कैंडल्स है, उसका कॉन्सेप्ट यहाँ से निकला था that you know because she wants the moon, but the moon is not with her, so she's preserving these light in these jars. और उसमें कुछ jars खाली हैं because she said कि मैं इतना रोई हूँ कि आंसू निकलना बंद हो गए. So some of those jars are almost dirty, as if उसमें कुछ था और वो खत्म हो चुका है, like dry हैं बिल्कुल. So there's a sense of dryness in her space as well, and there's a half moon window at the back. So उसकी space भी rounded है ज़्यादा moon की shape पे, that you know she's stuck at the attic, which is the top part of the house. So she's trying to reach the moon, but she can't. She's closed down. So you know, so उसमें छोटे Easter eggs थे जो which was for us. So वही जो बात जब लोग कहते हैं ना, ओ तो आपको लगा सारा समझ आ गया होगा सबको. So I'm like, but you felt it, right? You felt something from that because there was a thought behind it. Because we felt it, and I felt it, and the art director felt it, and everybody felt it.
I've talked to you mostly about music videos. Do you approach your work with like, abhi recently you posted about, I think, Zara Shahjahan ki campaign.
Yeah.
Zara Shahjahan, who also one day I will get on this podcast. But is there
that woman, you need to talk to her. She's
is there a big difference in how you approach these different types of projects? Like music video versus fashion campaign versus...
Yes. So the medium is very different. The way that they're shot is very different. The way that उसके अंदर सबसे बड़ी चीज ये है that इसके अंदर you have space for moving, so you kinda can show so much more. Fashion में you have one image and that's it. So you have to bring something out जो एकदम से किसी को रोक दे. या वो एक चीज होते हुए कैप्चर की, उसमें फोटोग्राफर के साथ बहुत ज्यादा आता है. So the work is very, very different. I would always say I'm a fashion child because the fashion industry is somebody that is responsible for creating me. They were the ones who had the money and also the resources and also the creativity and the understanding of the creative and the respect for the creative that they gave. उस टाइम पे म्यूजिक वीडियो में होता था आर्ट डायरेक्टर चाहिए तो अगर रेड दीवार है तो उसके सामने येलो ही खड़ा होगा बिकॉज वो कंट्रास्ट होता है. सो यू कांट डू द टोन ऑन टोन. फैशन में भी ये बहुत होता है, कपड़े नजर नहीं आएंगे, ये नहीं होगा, बट यू एक्चुअली हैव टू काइंड ऑफ अनलर्न सर्टेन थिंग्स योरसेल्फ. एंड सो दोनों की अप्रोच बहुत डिफरेंट है. Zara Shahjahan is so interesting that you mentioned her. Zara Shahjahan is one person who always relies, हम कहते हैं कि कपड़े बेचते हो या आप मूड शॉट लेते हो. Zara is always the one who says मुझे मूड शॉट चाहिए, मुझे कपड़े बिक जाएंगे, मूड शॉट होना चाहिए, कुछ कुछ लोगों को दिखाना चाहिए, कहानी होनी चाहिए. So you can pick any campaign, if I'm a part of it or not. Honestly, that woman is brilliant. I think she's one of the most talented designers that Pakistan has. One of the most authentic, the one who's actually responsible for a lot of visual language that's happening right now in Pakistan, both in actually all the fields. And she's a miniature artist by degree. So it's so interesting to see her coming, and she was also one of the first people ever that I worked with. Because I was in NCA second year, and then she was doing her first fashion show, and she wanted people to work on her as stylist. Ka concept nahi tha, but people who can get her like create these looks for her. So it was me and a few of our friends, and we went, and like these little kids who went to Zara, and Zara gave us the space to do that. And there's a lot of honestly, there's a lot of fashion industry. I mean, there are a lot of models. There's a lot of videographers. There are a lot of photographers. There are a lot of art directors, including myself, that Zara has very unconsciously and very graciously imparted a lot of knowledge to, and given a lot of space to create new things and different things that were not happening in the industry otherwise. Because she always believed in an identity of Pakistan and not something else. सही है, लोग कहते होंगे, कहीं पे लोग उठ के कह देते हैं कि वो आपका विजुअल जूस से मिलता है, भी मिलेगा कभी कभी तो मिल ही जाएगा, ये पॉसिबल बात है. But if you look at it, it's always rooted in us, and she has honestly given so much space to this to the fashion industry. Actually, what's happening right now, she's the one who's responsible for so many things. I think she doesn't even realize it.
Yeah. I think इस तरह के लोग, and I think I can say the same for you too. It's hard to realize the impact you're having while you're doing the work, because you're just doing the work, right? You don't even अक्सर see के ripples कहाँ तक जा रहे हैं. Is there a big difference? This is a question I was thinking of. I'm from Karachi, but my family is from Lahore. I see the cities as having very different vibes. My sasural is now in Islamabad and from Murray. Does that translate into शहरों की artistic sensibilities and scenes as well?
Yes, it does. It does for sure. I used to say it doesn't. Karachi is always more professional, especially in the sense they're professional, as in I would say they're business minded more than professional.
Right.
So everything has to do with time and money.
Yeah.
And then everything comes with that. Lahore, I always say, is a village that went for a walk and became a city accidentally. But Lahore has always been a cultural hub. It has always been something जहाँ से artists निकले, and वो अभी नहीं निकले, वो
there's so much history there. Yeah.
हमेशा से. Karachi's always been a port city. It has always invited new talent in, and it is still true कि आप Karachi का जो concept है next to the sea, it is something जहाँ पे नया talent आता है, वो नए talent को honor भी करते हैं. बट उसमें ये है कि पैसे से जुड़ा होता है, सारा टाइम से जुड़ा होता है. आपका मतलब उसमें मुझे थोड़ा सा, आई एम अ वेरी इमोशनल ह्यूमन बीइंग, एज यू माइट हैव रियलाइज्ड, बट कराची में थोड़ा सा इमोशनलेस है. बट दैट डजंट मीन दैट आई डोंट, दिस इज नॉट व्हाट आई मीन इन टर्म्स ऑफ आर्ट वाइज. Karachi is something else. Lahore is something else. You cannot compare the two. Like there is no comparison. Even like the school wise and the teaching wise, I think Indus Valley, the kind of work that they do is amazing. You know, like amazing. And even like visual media wise, you have people like Beanish, she's a very famous, very, very brilliant production designer. I adore that woman. I worked. I was a stylist for a movie that she was a production designer for. That was one of my first projects ever in film. And what did I not learn from that woman? Just by seeing her work and just by her sheer brilliance of how she works. You have so many people in Karachi. The only problem is that there's आपके जो higher ups उनकी बहुत strong business minded mentality है, जिसकी वजह से it stops a lot of creativity from happening. तो होता क्या, a lot of कराचीइट्स जो होते हैं ना, वो ये कंप्लेन करते हैं, सारे फोटोग्राफर्स लाहौर में, सारी मॉडल लाहौर में जी, सारे आर्ट डायरेक्टर्स लाहौर में, कराची में कोई क्यों नहीं है? इट्स बिकॉज वहां पे स्पेस नहीं मिलता उनको, बिकॉज एवरीबॉडी इज रनिंग आफ्टर मनी, everybody's running after something else. So and rightfully so, it's a cutthroat country, city. The population is insane. You have so many people. You have anybody can replace you in 2 minutes. So obviously, वहाँ पे, you know, it is like a survival. आपका एक mode चल रहा होता है.
Yeah, sort of like
honestly, if I was in Karachi, I would be nowhere. I would really? be working in an MNC, or I'd be working in some agency.
Yeah, it does seem like it's like a way to sort of control the chaos of the city. You put these time and money constraints.
I don't think anybody's doing it consciously, by the way. Right, that has just happened. I think it is. Imagine वहाँ का rent बहुत ज़्यादा है, वहाँ का petrol बहुत ज़्यादा है, वहाँ पे आपको आप वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा hopelessness भी नजर आती है, because and उसमें किसी का कोई मसला नहीं. It is not to do with street crime or MQM or anybody. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It is simply to do with the fact कि एक दौड़ है, और वो rightfully so है, जहाँ पर इतना बंदा होगा कि आपको रिप्लेस 2 मिनट में कोई कर सकता है, then आप डिस्पोजेबल फील करते हो. देन आपके ना एक एनिमल इंस्टिंक्ट्स हो जाते हैं कि मुझे सर्वाइव करना है सिर्फ. तो सर्वाइवल में फिर आप सब कुछ करोगे, आप अपने रेट्स भी कम करोगे, आप डायरेक्टर की भी सुनोगे, आप प्रोड्यूसर की भी सुनोगे. यहाँ पे हम रिस्क ले सकते हैं. और लाहौरी तो मैं बताऊं लेजी तरीन लोग हैं. मतलब मैं बहुत प्राउड हूँ लेजी होने पे, बट लाइक लेजी तरीन लोग हैं. हम लास्ट मिनट काम करेंगे, कोई नहीं हो जाएगा, देख लेंगे. कराची में आप जाते हो, दे वुड नॉट लेट यू टच अ प्रॉप इफ यूर एन आर्ट डायरेक्टर, बिकॉज़ दे लाइक आप नहीं हमारा काम है, बिकॉज उसको कह रहा है कि मैं पैसा हलाल करूंगा ना, मुझे निकाल देंगे. यहाँ पे एवरीबॉडी से चल तू भी आ जा, दोस्त भी बुला ले, ये भी कर ले, वो भी कर ले, सब मिलके करेंगे. एंड आई थिंक यहाँ के उसी वजह से शायद थ्राइव ज्यादा करते हैं आर्टिस्टिकली, बिकॉज एवरीबडी इज देयर, एवरीबडी इज पुटिंग समथिंग इन. But professional, I would say I don't think Lahore is professional.
Right.
We're very loving though.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Is there, before I ask you my last, which is a very stupid, silly question, are there any people you want to specifically shout out and that people should check out? You mentioned Rasta. Zara Shahjahan obviously is an established name.
I think, oh my God, there's so many people. I think there's a long list. I think Rasta for sure. If people haven't looked at Rasta is doing brilliant work in fashion. You have Generation who's doing brilliant work, and I actually sometimes feel कि मुझे अगर वो hire कर लें, मैं उनकी कुछ भी काम कर लूँ, करने को तैयार हूँ, because you know, and I mean hire as an employee, because the kind of work that they do is brilliant. Zara Shahjahan, like anything that she's doing is brilliant. You have brands like Sifuse who have changed the way that the fashion industry works on a very different scale. You know, you have people like Mariam Ibraz, she's an art director and she's an artist, visual artist. Mahur Jamal, who's another artist that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and that's actually her painting.
Really?
I asked her to design this for my space actually during COVID. So she designed it looking at the space, kaisa hoga, waisa hoga. So you know,
she's definitely someone who has a very like unique voice.
Because she's so unapologetically herself, you know.
Yeah.
She sees her culture, she sees where she's from, and she does it, and that's what we all love, you know. And then you have, you know, musicians like Anna Salman, who I think Anna Salman ka naam hai, jo all girls band ex-member hai unki.
Right.
Brilliant girl, the kind of music that she's doing. Everybody should go and check out The Colony. I think once, if you think that Pakistan mein kuch nahi hota hai, you guys need to go and see anything at The Colony. Like उनके हर week कुछ ना कुछ हो रहा होता है, and you will see कि पाकिस्तानी बच्चा क्या नहीं कर रहा है. You have brands like Lakeer who's trying new things, new visual, young बच्चे हैं, you know. You have people like Bemisal. Bemisal is this person who's a makeup. I just call her a visual artist, you know, through and through, because she is again somebody who doesn't confine herself in a box. She's a model. She's an She advocates so many things. She's a makeup artist. She's a visual artist. She creates jewelry. She paints. She draws. पता नहीं वो क्या नहीं करती है बंदी. That woman is so talented. You know. You have Farheen Raza Jafri. I'm a huge fan of that girl as well. She's a singer whose voice is, I think, voice of a generation. Honestly speaking, like आपको रेशमा क्या याद आ जाती है? आपको कहते हैं आवाजें exist नहीं करती हैं, you know. And then you have young directors like Ariba Naveed. You need to all go and see her short film, which is on YouTube actually. When the silent comes, कुछ इस तरह से करके नाम है. It's a thesis film.
Yeah.
And it is actually on Javed Iqbal and जो serial killer था. This is way before the movie was even thought of, जो भी आई है. And she as brilliant as that woman is, as brilliant a writer that she is, her story is basically about a woman who wants to get abortion. And she's actually the main psychologist on the case of a child that survived Javed Iqbal. So on one side, there's a serial killer who's killing kids, and on the other side, there's a woman who's seeking abortion. And the story is not about the serial killer. It is a beautiful shot on a budget that is for a thesis film. And what a film, and and जिसको आप कहते हैं ना pregnant visual, उसके अंदर वो है, there's silences. Iman Suleiman is this model. I think everybody got popular and sees a brilliant work. Trinette Lucas is this model from Pakistan who's again, you look at her and you're like, Pakistan ये भी करता है, ऐसे भी होते हैं, and then you have this other person, Daniel Hassan, as I mentioned him before as well. He's somebody who actually strove to tell stories through fashion. So he's the one who actually tried very hard कि fashion industry में जो videos बनती हैं उनकी एक narrative चलना चाहिए.
Right.
So he started doing these fashion films that have a narrative to them. There are short films. So उसने क्या किया, उससे क्या, because it's such a beautiful thing, because he was doing that. He opened doors for all the editors who were, wanted to work in things where उनको काम उस तरह से नहीं मिलता था. DOPs आना शुरू हो गए. उसके साथ he started looking at musicians, young musicians. Like one of my favorite people that I listen to on back to back is Amna Riaz, who's on Spotify as well. She's a beautiful voice. So Amna Riaz का music उसने उठाया, फिर किसी और को उठाया. उनको he tries very hard कि उनको पैसे मिले, वो मुफ्त में काम ना करें, credit basis पे काम ना करें, even if it's a small fashion brand.
Sure.
So उसने वो करना शुरू किया. Daniel Hassan is this one person. So you have so many people who are trying so many things. सब छोटा-छोटा करके, कुछ ना कुछ हम किश्ती उठा ही लेंगे, मुझे लगता है. So it gives me so much hope, especially to us who kind of lost the hope or found it difficult कि वो एक बैरियर बने होते. तो अगर मैं कहता हूँ बैरियर हम ही धक्का लगा के खोल दिया है, तो हम खोल के औरों को इनवाइट करें कि और लोग आए और आके देखें. So there's so many people who are doing so much.
I think a lot of people's minds will be blown by your shoutouts and having themselves be included. The last question I have that you may not have an answer for, but we ask as a tradition on all our interview episodes. Do you have any Jinn stories?
I think I do actually.
Personal
Jinn story.
Oh,
I know a lot of people that I do know a lot of people as well जो जिनकी stories मुझे जिनों की बहुत कहानियां पता हैं. That will be another podcast for you. That's just Jinn stories.
We have a Jinn stories series. तो आप time निकालें, हम episode बना देंगे.
मैं निकाल लूँगा. So basically I have like 2-3 stories. मेरा एक पर्सनल स्टोरी जो मेरी जिन स्टोरी है वो ये है. तो आई शुड नॉट बी टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस. मैं कॉन्स्टेंटली मुझे लग रहा है मेरे ऑफिस में कुछ हो रहा है.
मैं सोच रहा हूँ रात काफी हो रही है. बट मेरी एक छोटी सी जो मेरी अपनी पर्सनल स्टोरी थी, व्हिच टू दिस डे आई फील आई डोंट नो व्हेदर इट वाज रियल और फेक. सो मेरी जो नानी है उनका मॉल टाउन में घर है और उनके ना साइड पे बहुत बड़ा आम का दरख्त है. अब वो कट चुका है एक्चुअली. But बचपन में ना हम सारे cousins we like I have 5 mamus, 6 mamus, and then I have like 1 khala. So there was a lot of kids. तो होता क्या था कि everybody's parents were working, so my nanny's house were like the center point. So सारे स्कूल के बाद एक गाड़ी पिक करती थी उनको, सारे I think 10-15 kids को, और सारों को उधर ले जाते होते थे. तो I remember वहाँ पर जो दरख्त था ना, उस दरख्त के नीचे there was a झूला. तो बचपन में हमारी आदत थी कि वो झूले के ऊपर ना बारी लगाते होते थे, और वो गर्मी बहुत होती थी तो एक छोटा सा 2-3 आई थिंक महीने होते जिसमें टाइम मिलता था. तो हम क्या करते थे, हम उसको घुमाते थे और उस पर बैठ जाते थे. तो मेरी बारी ना, सब चले गए, सब ने ना लाइक वो कुछ हुआ. मैं खैर आई थिंक आई वाज आल्सो बीइंग रियली पिसी एंड अनोइंग, और मैं भी तंग कर रहा था सबको. तो सब चले गए, वाज जस्ट मी एंड माय कजन लेफ्ट. सो मैंने जब उसको किया तो शी आल्सो लेफ्ट. तो आई वाज लाइक ओ फाइन, आई एम लेफ्ट अलोन. So उस टाइम पे आई रिमेंबर आई वाज टर्निंग अराउंड और वो ना एकदम से फंस गया. तो वो फंस के ना वो खुल नहीं, मुझे कहीं और क्यों नहीं हो रहा. तो मैंने जब ऊपर देखा ना, तो इट्स आई स्टिल डोंट नो इफ इट्स ट्रू और नॉट, बट जब मैंने ऊपर देखा ना तो मुझे दरख्तों के बीच में जगह होती है आपको, वहां से ना छत नजर आता. तो देयर आई सॉ दिस थिंग स्टैंडिंग दैट वाज लाइक वेयरिंग लाइक उसने एक स्कार्फ सा पहना था, बट इट हैड अ फेस ऑफ अ चील. चील की शक्ल थी उसकी. एंड आई जस्ट लुक्ड एट इट एंड आई लाइक फ्रीक्ड आउट एंड आई लेफ्ट. And I just felt it in my bones that this wasn't something real. Yeah.
And उसके बाद मुझे लोगों ने कहा तुमने चील बैठी हुई देखी होगी और कपड़े पड़े होंगे, तुम्हें लगा होगा, पर जो भी था. So I still to this day I don't know कि वो सच है कि नहीं है, बट लाइक मुझे याद आ गई पूरी चीज, so I don't know if it was a good thing or not, but
no, I mean that's a great one. I mean, we've heard a lot of Jinn stories, but none of them have cheel representation. And हाँ, हमारे भी ददियाल का घर मॉडल टाउन में ही है, and you know it's an old
I still live
house.
in Model Town.
Oh, you still live in Model Town? Okay, I'm not gonna ask you which block.
नानी का घर वही घर है.
I'll ask you after we start recording. But हाँ, हमारे यहाँ भी कहते हैं कि हाँ एक साहब हैं, एक like अच्छा चलो, एक तो ये हिंदुस्तानी अदब to the extreme, एक साहब है वो जिन है.
So my पुप्पो, उनके घर में इस तरह से होता था. जोहर टाउन उनका घर था, और उस टाइम पे जोहर टाउन अल्लाह चौक नहीं बना हुआ था, बहुत पुरानी बात. तो कच्ची सी सड़क होती थी, सिर्फ उन्हीं का घर ना आपको फैसल टाउन से नजर आता था. उस टाइम पे वी यूज्ड टू लिव इन फैसल टाउन. सो हम जब जाते तो उनके घर क्या था, उनके ऊपर ना उनके जो स्टोर था उधर से आवाजें आती होती थी रात को, वो हिलने की आवाजें आती होती थी. तो वो क्या करते थे, उनको लगता था जब कोई हिला देता है, कुछ होता है, खानसामा हुआ है, क्या हुआ. तो उसके बाद ना उन्होंने जब भी कुछ रखते थे ना, वो अगले दिन सुबह वो चीज साइड पे होती थी. So then they got this person, and one of this our very distant relative, he was blind, he's passed away now. He used to have a mokkal. वो he was a very, वो बहुत पढ़ते थे, तो उनके पास एक होता था जिन. तो उनसे अक्सर हमने, by the way, it's really strange, हम उनसे चीजें भी ढूंढवाई हुई हैं. लाइक वो चीज हमें मिल वहाँ पे पड़ी है, वो बता देंगे फलां जगह पे फलां पड़ी और मिल जाती थी. So उन्होंने बताया मेरी पप्पो को, बेसिकली उन्होंने कहा कि आपकी जो जगह है ना ऊपर से, वहां से जिन गुजरते हैं, उनके गुजरने की जगह है. सो वहां पे चीजें ना रखा करें, वो सिर्फ माइंड करते हैं कि वो वहां से गुजर रहे हैं, तो आप चीजें ना रखा करें. और उन्हीं के घर क्या होना शुरू हुआ कि उनके घर ना काफी कहते थे बरकत रहती थी. तो उनके ना ऊपर वाले पोर्शन पे बुजुर्ग एक नजर आते होते थे, अक्सर नजर आते थे, हैं और फिर नहीं होते थे, साइड से नजर आते थे और नहीं है. तो बहुत ज्यादा ये चलता होता था. तो मेरी पप्पो, शी इज रियली फनी. सो शी became really religious once. She went to like Umrah and she came back, and as all Pakistanis go to Umrah and come back, they become very, very religious. So she came back and she was like, मैं tahajjud भी पढ़ती थी, मैं सब कुछ पढ़ती थी. And she's like, I was sitting in my house, I was alone, and मैं बैठी थी जान नमाज पे. तो कहती मैं घर पे अकेली थी, और कहती मुझे ना फील हुआ है कि मेरे दरवाजे में ना खड़े हुए. तो जो साहब जिनकी बात करते थे ना, कहती कोई खड़े में, और कहती वो अपेरेंटली अच्छे थे. तो कहती मैंने ना उसी वक्त अल्लाह मियां से दुआ की. मैं कहा अल्लाह मियां देखिए, मेरा ना ईमान ना बहुत लाइक पूरा है, तो अभी भी मैं आई हूँ नया ईमान साफ करके, तो आप टेस्ट ना करें, मुझे कोई ऐसी चीज ना दिखाएं कि मैं मुड़ जाऊं और फिर मैं वापस ना आऊं. So then she never saw him again. But I have a lot of Jinn stories.
That's crazy. I am going to definitely hit you up for a Jinn story special. But Hashim Ali Saab, thank you very much for your time. बहुत रात हो गई. I will let you go now. Is there any place people should go to find your work? People who somehow are unaware. Is it your Instagram? Is it your website?
I think Instagram probably. That's probably the thing that I update the most. On my website, I have stuff, but I think I've been updated for a very long time, which I need to do that.
Right.
Or YouTube or anywhere, but mainly Instagram, I think.
Yeah, your Instagram is very active. मतलब usually जब मैं किसी profile पे जाता हूँ और 1000 से ज़्यादा posts होते हैं, I'm like this is too much. But you, I'm happy to have. You're like 2000 plus. I'm like ये तो मुझे चाहिए. But yeah, thank you very much for taking the time. Hopefully I'll have you back on. And बस जुल्फी तक भी हम पहुँच ही जाएं. I've destroyed his DMs. But चलें. Thanks everyone for watching. That's the episode. You know where to find us. You know where to find him. And we'll see you next week.